Hey guys, remember last week we left Flat Stanley in the bull ring with the bull and Carmen, and we were trying to figure out how was Stanley going to get out of the bull ring. So let's read and find out. Chapter 3, La Fiesta. As the sun set over Mexico City, Stanley stood in the courtyard of Carmen's home, where her family had gathered to celebrate after the bullfight. Stanley had never known a person with so many brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts, in-laws, nieces, nephews, and godchildren. An older woman with enormous eyeglasses rushed up and squeezed Stanley. She reached out to squeeze his cheek, but pinched the side of his head instead. He tried to smile. Bienvenidos, the woman cried. Bienvenidos. Stanley looked around for Carmen to translate. Bien means well, a voice said. It was an older voice, the first signs of a mustache sprouting on his lips. Venidos comes from the verb venir, to come. Bienvenidos means welcome. Welcome, Stanley said. You speak English. I am Eduardo, said the boy, nodding. We are excited to meet you. So Stanley must have gotten thrown out of the stands because he made it out just fine. He stepped aside to reveal a group of children. She says you are flat as a pancake, said Eduardo. He grabbed Stanley and led him through the crowd. A moment later, Stanley and Eduardo stood in a corner of the courtyard, the other children arranged around them on the grass. Eduardo said they were eager to hear Stanley's stories of adventure. Eduardo would translate. The children oohed and awed as Stanley told them how he had used his body as a lever to rescue his friend Jane from a gold mine. They awed as he described how he had used his elbows as weapons to defeat villains in Japan. Then they gasped when he told them he could fly like a jet plane using nothing but his muscled body. Stanley did not tell them that his brother, Arthur, had helped him save Jane. He did not tell them that neither the villains he had encountered in Japan nor his elbows were particularly dangerous. And he did not tell them that he couldn't really fly like an airplane, although he sometimes got carried away by heavy winds, or, at moments like this one, by telling stories that weren't quite true. It was very dark when Stanley concluded his tale of the mummy he befriended in an ancient Egyptian tomb. There was no mistake the admiration and amazement of his listeners. Someone called something out to Eduardo. The other children cried, "See, see!" "We have a surprise for you," Eduardo said with a grin. "Come." They led Stanley to a grand tree. The little girl who had compared Stanley to a pancake stepped forward and held out her hands. They were filled with small candies and shiny wrappers. "Thank you," said Stanley. He took one and started unwrapping it. "Not yet," said Eduardo in a low voice. "You must put them in your pockets." "Up," commanded Eduardo, and the two boys grabbed Stanley's legs and lifted him into the air. Above his head was a tree limb. Stanley grabbed it with both hands. "This is a strange surprise," thought Stanley. He looked down and saw the little girl standing beneath him. Her eyes were hidden by a blindfold. Then the other children started spinning her around and counting. Let's look at the picture. What do you think they're doing to Stanley? They put candy in his pocket. And now the girl has a blindfold on. And they're spinning her around. And she has a bat. Oh my goodness. After 7 spins, the girl weaved with dizziness. Someone handed her a giant stick. The girl held the stick over Stanley's head and swung it. Stanley felt a swish of air beneath his legs. "Hey!" he cried. All the children were cheering. "What are we doing to Stanley? What do you think that he is? Maybe a piñata?" "What are you doing?" yelled Stanley again as the girl swung the stick a second time, grazing his foot. "You're going to hurt me!" screamed Stanley at the top of his lungs. The little girl froze. "Is something wrong, Stanley?" "What's going on?" Stanley said. "We're just playing piñata," replied Eduardo. "But I'm not a piñata. Now get me down from here," said Stanley. The two boys rushed up and helped Stanley to the ground. "But we thought," said Eduardo. "What?" said Stanley. "We thought you could not be hurt," Eduardo said. "From your stories, you seem so fearless, indestructible, like you're made of rubber. We thought you would like to be the piñata." Stanley shook his head sadly. He folded himself to the ground. I can get hurt, he said quietly. I know I didn't make it sound like it yesterday, but I can. I can get as hurt as easily as anyone. But I should have been honest with you. Eduardo was frowning. I'm sorry, Stanley said softly. He gave a heavy sigh. All I want is to get Carlos's great grandmother's secret ingredient and return home safely. Eduardo blinked. Is that why you are here? For the secret of Abuela? Stanley nodded. There are spies, said Eduardo. I know, Stanley said. It is very far, said Eduardo. I know, repeated Stanley, but I promised I would try and I can't turn back now. Eduardo peered deep into Stanley's eyes. Then he walked off to talk to the other children. They probably never want to see me again, Stanley thought. Eduardo returned. We'll take you to Abuela, he announced. Really? Said Stanley. The journey is long and dangerous, even for one as fearless and as indestructible as you, said Eduardo. We will protect you. Stanley looked up at the children who now encircled him. His heart felt warm. Silently, he reached into his pocket and began passing out candy. So, the kids are going to take him to see Abuela to get the secret ingredient. Today, I don't think there's any questions I have for you to answer, but look for a new chapter on Wednesday of Black Family. Bye, guys.